Farewell, Sonic. Forever.
Sonic Adventure saw a healthy launch in both Japan and America and saw loads of people buy a Dreamcast specifically for Sonic. And only Sonic. It's not like the Dreamcast didn't have other good games. Crazy Taxi, Jet Set Radio, Shenmue, Seaman, to some people, were all considered cult classics. It's just people were really only interested in Sonic, so if people wanted Sonic, then Sega was gonna give them Sonic. I mean, it is a Sonic game. Shortly after Sonic Adventure's US release, Sonic Team began working on a follow-up game with the goal of making it Sonic's biggest and most grandiose adventure yet, with the game's writer, Shiro Mikawa, literally proclaiming to the entire team, Sonic will go to space this time, cause it's the 21st century already. By the end of development, this new game had shaped up to be something rather special. On June 23rd, 2001, Sonic Adventure 2 would launch on the Dreamcast and would receive critical praise and would bring in a whole new crop of fans who had never played a Sonic game before, but not through the Dreamcast version. We'll talk about why later. But for now, I'll say that SA2 would later be ported to various systems in modern day, with the best way of playing it nowadays being the HD ports on PlayStation 3, the Xbox family of systems, and Steam. As for me, this is how I was properly introduced to the Blue Blur after years of being too much of a stubborn Mario fangirl to even consider giving Sonic a chance, and I'm glad I was able to get over that, because it led my life down what I consider a roller coaster of emotions, given Sonic's track record after this game. Just like last time, I'll be playing the Steam version of the game with some mods that make it more close to the Dreamcast original, as just like SADX, Sega screwed up a lot of stuff when porting this to modern systems. With all of that said though, let's delve into why Sonic Adventure 2 was Sega's swan song. Just like the first game, Sonic Adventure 2 divides the story and gameplay based on who you're playing as, but instead of there being 6 stories, we now have a hero and dark story, with each one focusing on 3 characters each, and just like SA1, this can get tricky to put together if you aren't paying attention, so let's start off with the plot synopsis. We kick things off with Dr. Robotnik, who has taken the insulting name of Eggman for himself as he breaks into a top-secret military research facility on Prison Island to uncover his grandfather's greatest creation, which is revealed to be Sonic! Bitch, that's racist. This is Shadow the Hedgehog, the world's ultimate life form who demonstrates his power to Eggman by defeating the easiest boss in the game. Eggman is, needless to say, thoroughly impressed by Shadow's capability of breathing, as Edgy the Hedgie himself tells Eggman to gather more Chaos Emeralds and meet him on the Space Colony Arc. Suddenly we cut to the middle of the desert where Knuckles and newcomer Boobs the Bat are having a custody battle over who gets to keep the Master Emerald. And God, I hope this is taking place on Angel Island, because if not... Eggman tries to steal the Master Emerald with Knuckles shattering it into pieces, setting up his gameplay role as well as Boobs.
All the world's gems are gems to crystal gems.
Eggman heads to his secret base inside this pyramid, I hope he dealt with the Pharaoh beforehand, where he watches Fox News cover a bank robbery, and despite the footage showing that it is clearly Shadow, they say Sonic is the perpetrator. Fucking racists. It's here we learn a bit about Shadow's backstory. 50 years ago, when Shadow was first created by Gerald Robotnik, he became extremely close with Gerald's granddaughter Maria, not in a romantic way, like on the level of siblings. Then one day, Gunn, the Sonic World's military, stormed the Ark, seized a lot of Gerald's research, arrested him, and killed most of everyone on board, including Maria, with her using her last moments to send Shadow away via an escape pod. However, Shadow here has some trouble remembering what her final wish was, and comes to the conclusion that it was seek revenge against humanity. How the fuck did he come to that conclusion? What in that flashback could have informed him that Maria wanted Shadow to avenge her murder? I know that there is some material that explains this, but that all came after this game, so with the context in the game itself, Shadow's perspective here makes no sense. Meanwhile, we cut to a gun helicopter with Sonic soon busting free from their captivity and cutting it way too close with the chopper blades before diving off into the city below. And you know, it's a good thing that fall damage isn't a thing in Sonic's world, or else this fall would... After evading police capture and causing way too much property damage, okay, you know, maybe it's a good thing Sonic got arrested, Sonic and Shadow finally meet for the first time. Hey you! Don't you think it's fucked up how the mainstream media keeps thinking you and I are the same, and how that speaks to a deep-rooted issue about race and ethnicity in this country? What the fuck is he talking about?
Say something, you
Shadow then demonstrates the power of chaos control, allowing him to warp at speeds that not even Sonic can keep up with. He soon leaves the blue blur alone to be captured yet again by Gun. Eggman is able to board the Ark and works his way to the central control room after dealing with a case of advanced darkness. He then meets with Shadow, where he introduces Eggman to the Eclipse Cannon, a weapon capable of destroying an entire planet. However, they need all 7 Chaos Emeralds to fully power it up, and they currently only have 2. Then Boobs reveals herself to the two and offers to work with them, and even pulls an emerald out of her vagina to sweeten the deal, disgusting Eggman in the process, and properly introduces herself as Rouge the Bat. Team Eggsack returns to Prison Island, with the plan being to steal the Chaos Emeralds Gun has in their possession, with Eggman starting off by causing enough noise for Rouge to slip into the vault undetected, and he does this by destroying millions of dollars worth of military property. Our tax dollars hard at work, ladies and gentlemen. The three are overlooking the sea, ready to enact their plan, when suddenly Amy glomps Shadow, who I imagine doesn't mind the out-of-nowhere affection. Eggman plans to make Amy walk the plank when Tails comes to her rescue. However, Tails, he got involved in a pretty bad drunk driving accident in between games, and now has to use the Tornado 2 as a mech to get around. Tails beats Eggman so badly that he cries about how his wife took the death egg in the divorce settlement and goes off to cry like a dirty little dirt boy. Amy and Tails both came here to break Sonic out of jail, and eventually find him pacing back and forth in his cell. Amy opens it up for him as Sonic rushes out and into the most iconic cutscene in the game.
I found you.
I think you're the hedgehog around here. You're comparing yourself to me? Huh, you're not even darn. Not bad for an imposter.
Sonic and Shadow both rush out of there after Eggman announces that the island will soon blow up, with Shadow using Chaos Control to save Rouge and the 3 emeralds she gathered. Meanwhile, Sonic, Tails, and Amy, well, you see, Damn, Eggman really did just nuke Hawaii. I guess he didn't like the Lilo and Stitch remake either. Soon after, Eggman powers up the cannon with the 6 emeralds that they have, and decides to give the people of Earth a demonstration along with his now iconic announcement.
Citizens of Earth, I come on the moon!
Yeah, it's gonna stay like that for sure. Rouge and Shadow decide to confront Eggman about his drinking problem. Meanwhile, Rouge pulls up an article about Tails and how after the events of SA1, he was given a Chaos Emerald as thanks for saving Station Square. So they head off to find Tails, but Rouge then contacts someone over radio, implying her real reason for working with them is to gather more information on Project Shadow. Tails reveals to Sonic and Amy that he does indeed have the 7th Chaos Emerald and believes that he can use it to track down where Eggman is. Tails manages to locate the President of the United States, I think, and manages to trace a signal from his car's communication system to the space colony Ark. So they head to Eggman's Pyramid Base, and oh yeah, Knuckles is here now, by the way. Together, the colorful quartet break into Eggman's base, where the Mad Doctor confronts them with this massive golem, which Sonic promptly defeats, causing it to turn on Eggman. They manage to find a fucking space shuttle Eggman just has lying around for some fucking reason, and fly it to the Ark, where Knuckles nearly kills all of them. Knuckles rushes off to gather the emerald shards that he lost during the accident, with Tails revealing a fake emerald he made, which functions just like the real emerald, but has the ability to destroy the Eclipse Cannon. Rouge and Knuckles encounter each other one final time, and after an intense battle of who can drill the other first, Rouge nearly dies, with Knuckles saving her in the nick of time. She gives him all of her shards of the Master Emerald, allowing Knuckles to fully restore it, and by God, these two are gonna fuck off screen, aren't they? Eggman notices that there are 2 separate signals being sent out from the Chaos Emerald and deduces that one must be a fake, so he heads off, and as Sonic is making his way to the cannon, he gets a call from Tails that Eggman has Amy captive and is demanding the Chaos Emerald. Sonic hurries back and gets the idea to trick Eggman with the fake emerald, only for Eggman to capture Sonic in an escape pod that is rigged to blow, and jettisons it into space. Sonic then has the biggest asshole moment in the whole game and manages to use Chaos Control with the fake emerald to warp to safety. Of course, Tails and Amy believe that Sonic is fucking dead, and Tails kind of loses his shit and ends up shooting Eggman in the kidneys. Eggman calls Shadow and tells him to head to the control room just as he was confronting Rouge for being a double agent working for Gun. Yes, Rouge was playing Eggman and Shadow the whole time. She also questioned Shadow if he truly is the ultimate life form based on the research data that she found within the Ark. As Sonic makes his way to the control room, he and Shadow have one final encounter along the way. How the hell did you manage to pull off Chaos Control after seeing me do it like once? What can I say? I Ricky Ticky Diehard, motherfucker! What? Sonic manages to destroy the cannon with the fake emerald, and as Tails and Amy are celebrating, Eggman sneaks off with the real emerald and swaps the fake out for it, which causes the entire space colony to go on a collision course with Earth. Gerald's final message plays all over the globe as his master plan is put into effect as revenge for Maria's death. After reading through Gerald Robotnik's diary, which reveals his descent into madness after Maria's death, everyone realizes that they need to work together in order to stop the Ark from colliding with Earth. Even Eggman helps out the whole team, as he can't rule the world if there's no world to rule. Everyone plays their part in opening the way to the cannon's core, except for Shadow, who feels that his promise to Maria is fulfilled, until Amy gives him a good talking to that jogs his memory, revealing that Maria's true final wish was for all of the people on Earth to be happy. Shadow sheds a tear as he rushes off to the core to keep his true promise to Maria. Sonic and Knuckles make a mad dash for the Master Emerald Shrine at the cannon's core to stop the Chaos Emeralds, when suddenly, Giant Lizard! This might seem like it comes out of nowhere, but this thing is seen when Rouge is doing research on Project Shadow earlier in the game. This is the Bio-Lizard, the prototype of the ultimate life form. Now, how exactly did Gerald go from big-ass lizard to 3-foot hedgehog? Shut up! Shadow shows up in the nick of time and takes on the Bio-Lizard by himself, allowing Sonic and Knuckles to reach the shrine, with Knuckles commanding the Master Emerald to stop the Chaos Emeralds, which does work, until the Bio-Lizard uses Chaos Control and merges its asshole with the cannon to keep the Ark on its collision course, so Sonic and Shadow know what they need to do. Jesus Christ, guys, get a fucking room! Sonic and Shadow use the Chaos Emeralds to transform into Super Sonic and Super Shadow and take the beast head on, with Sonic holding up just fine, but it's revealed that Shadow is having trouble maintaining his super form. After Final Hazard is defeated, Sonic and Shadow rush towards the Ark and combine their powers to unleash one final Chaos Control, warping the Ark back to its normal orbit, saving the day, but this comes at the cost of Shadow, who plummets down to the Earth, feeling that his promise to Maria has been fulfilled. While people all over the globe celebrate, it's a bittersweet victory for our heroes who mourn the loss of Shadow. Eggman even contemplates how he looked up to Gerald, with Tails giving the most inappropriate response ever.
But what I do know is, we all did it together!
Tails, I'm trying to have a fucking moment here, you piece of shit! Rouge seemingly gives up on treasure hunting, as it's implied that she caught feelings for Knuckles, to which the Red Echidna himself... Everyone soon leaves, with Sonic bidding farewell to his fallen Hedgehog comrade.
Sayonara, Shadow the Hedgehog.
With that, we can end the story of Sonic Adventure 2. Honestly, I do enjoy this story very much. It's probably the most iconic Sonic story, and for good reason. They pulled all the stops and just went ham on making this feel like a more grand adventure than the first game, with Shadow and his backstory, which simultaneously adds some backstory for Eggman as well. Going to space was absolutely the right call here, and the way that the story finishes feels like it could act like the grand finale to the entire franchise. The story does, of course, have problems, though. Sonic's Chaos Control asshole makes no sense. I can get being able to use the fake emerald to perform the action, I just can't realistically believe that Sonic could do it after seeing Shadow use the ability one time. You also can't look me in the face and tell me that they had a lot of the details of Shadow's backstory down in this game, because a lot, and I mean a lot, gets explained in future titles, like Shadow's memory issues and Gerald going from the Bio-Lizard to Shadow. The voice acting also contributes to the story, and while it's definitely better than SA1, there are still some rough takes in here.
What are you doing here on this island? I'm the one who should be asking that question.
Let's get to work.
I hate you! You guys always leave me behind and have all the fun!
This also extends to the dialogue timing, as characters often speak over each other.
You're comparing yourself to me? Huh. You're not even good enough to be
I'll
my
make you eat those words.
It's distracting, but simultaneously charming. I also think Shadow's voice actor, David Humphrey, does a great job portraying the character. He can sound dark and brooding, but there are some moments of genuine emotion from him that I feel we sadly don't get to see from Shadow's current voice actor very often. One last thing I'll mention about the voice acting is how terrible the lip sync is. I think they just gave the actors the lines and didn't give them any instructions on matching the lip flaps. It's frankly embarrassing just how awful it is, especially because some PS1 games like Crash Bandicoot had better lip syncing. I can't remember if I said this in my SA1 video, and I honestly can't be fucked to check, but still, the issue persists here. At the very least, the gameplay has been improved over the first one. SA2 trims the fat of SA1 for a more cohesive gameplay experience. The game is split into 2 story campaigns, not counting the last story segment that unlocks later on, supporting 3 characters each, with the amount of gameplay styles being taken down from 6 to just 3. But those 3 are some of the best from Adventure 1, and they've all for the most part been improved. Sonic and Shadow are the speed characters, and they play exactly like how you'd expect them to. They can run, jump, spin dash, homing attack, and it helps that because stages aren't shared between every character now, the level designs can be hand-tailored towards that character and their unique abilities. What this means for Sonic and Shadow is that their level design tends to kick ass. Levels also just have more set pieces now to make them feel more distinct from one another. Take Sonic's first level, for example, City Escape. This is hands down my favorite level in the game. It's because it has everything you need to know for the rest of Sonic and Shadow's gameplay within the first 3 minutes that you're here. Tricking off these ramps can award you items and even give you more points, and because this level goes constantly downwards, you can keep your speed up, which feels fantastic. It introduces the rail grinding mechanics, which we'll talk about in a sec, and top that off with the gun truck chase at the end, which caps off what is without a doubt the best first stage in any Sonic game. Rail grinding is a new mechanic in the game that would become a series staple afterwards. How it works here can be a little finicky though. When you're on a rail, you can press down the B button to crouch, which ups how fast you can go, but you need to maintain balance as Sonic and Shadow so that they keep that speed and don't fall off. The mechanic works fine in the original Dreamcast release, but in the HD version, Sega fucked something up in the porting process that makes the balancing just way too sensitive, like so much so that just the slightest nudge of the analog stick registers as a full tilt for some reason. What's shitty is that there aren't really any mods that restore the original sensitivity, so your best option is to just install a mod that disables the balancing mechanic altogether. Another issue that can arise is actions. Now, truth be told, this is persistent across all characters, but it's most prevalent with Sonic and Shadow. They can get various upgrades that add new actions to their movesets, but for some bafflingly stupid reason, every action, except for jump, is mapped to B, which can be a problem when you're trying to perform something like the Lightspeed Dash. Instead of having to charge up the Lightspeed Dash like in Sonic Adventure 1, it's now performed by a simple press of the action button. However, I, and many others, have had several instances of trying to perform the action, only to do a somersault instead, which can lead to your death if you're not careful. Outside of that, Sonic and Shadow are my 2 favorite characters to play as in the game, which is kind of a shame for Shadow because he only has 4 levels to his name. But I genuinely enjoy a lot of their stages, except for Final Chase and Final Rush, and it's mainly due to how fucky some of the rail grinding and anti-gravity stuff can be at times. Tails and Dr. Eggman are the mech characters in the game, refining Gamma's gameplay style from SA1, except we don't get to play as Gamma here since Sega... So I get Dr. Eggman being in the mech, that makes sense to me. Why did they take Tails' legs? So, from my understanding, Tails was a late addition to the game as he wasn't intended to be playable, but due to fan outcry, they just said fuck it and made him an Eggman clone. The time limits that Gamma had to deal with in the previous game are done away with, as now it's just a matter of getting from point A to point B at your own pace. They control somewhat similarly to Gamma, albeit a bit more clunky, I feel. Gamma had a pretty good control scheme going in the first game, yet here, Tails and Eggman have more weight to their movements, which does make sense, I'm just not a huge fan of it. Tails and Eggman can also lock onto multiple targets, which is necessary for getting a higher score count at the end of the stage, and they place a lot of things in these levels to assure that you can do that. Perhaps the oddest change with the mech characters is that they don't need rings to live per se. Instead, they have health bars now, which is interesting to say the least. You have what I want to say is about 5 hits until you lose a life, but fortunately, health can be restored by either collecting enough rings or by getting these health pack items from capsules. The level design in the mech stages is fine. I feel they often give a good heads up on the danger ahead, giving you enough time to react. But there are several instances of there just being a group of enemies placed around solely for you to rack up points, but I honestly don't mind it that much. The mech levels are slower paced, but I do like to play through them. As Dr. Eggman. Tails' levels are shit! There are way too many instances of enemies just dropping down in front of you with no warning whatsoever. It feels like his levels just weren't play tested as much as Dr. Eggman's, which given what we know about his late inclusion, I'm probably right about. This is especially prevalent in Tails' final level, Eternal Engine, which just plain sucks! Way too many instances of bullshit enemy placement, not to mention those insta-kill hatches that pull you towards them. The final gameplay style returning from Sonic Adventure 1 is the treasure hunting gameplay, which we experience through Knuckles and Rouge. Both characters control like how Knuckles did in the previous game. They can glide, climb walls, what you would expect them to. You have to find the 3 pieces of the Master Emerald, or in certain stages, Chaos Emeralds or keys, in order to complete it, and because these stages are made for them, they actually have a lot more hiding places in them. There is one glaring issue that I have with the treasure hunting stages in this game over SA1 that drags these down for me. So back in SA1, you had the ability to detect all 3 emerald shards at once, which cut down on the amount of time that you had to spend in those levels. Well, here in SA2, you can only detect 1 emerald shard at a time. I absolutely do not understand why this change was made, as it just makes these levels frustrating. It's not like the other emerald shards aren't there when you can't detect them. They are! You can, in fact, be right next to an emerald shard, but because it's the one that the game doesn't want you to get at the moment, the radar won't detect it. This can lead to an issue where you could just pass by an emerald shard multiple times and not know it's there, which can drastically increase the amount of time you spend in these stages. It's not that much of a problem in the more closed off, more smaller levels like Wild Canyon or Security Hall, but in both of the pyramid levels, Pumpkin Hill, Meteor Herd, and fucking Mad Space, you can spend upwards of half an hour in these if you get really unlucky. Now, I don't mind it as much in Pumpkin Hill, mainly because that level is still fun, not to mention but Meteor Herd, which is Knuckles' last level, is very vertically oriented, and because of the radar, it can make finding these shards a massive pain. But you know what? It pales in comparison to Rouge's final level. Mad Space is the worst level in the game, hands down. It's just a large open area with barely anything to do in it. I thought I was playing Sonic Adventure 2, not goddamn Starfield. Fucking Todd Howard, you duped me again! It's not helped that the planetoid gravity in this stage is so terrible. I'm glad this is the only stage to really, use it, because it just makes me wish I was playing a different game with better gravity physics. You can get hints as to where the shards are located, but I don't find these hint monitors as helpful as the Tikal orb from the previous game. For starters, it's 1 hint per shard, and you can pause the game to look at them, but you can easily mix up which hint is for which shard. Not to mention in Mad Space, they give you the hints in reverse. You also lose out on points if you use a hint monitor, which affects your rank at the end of the level. Another new addition, which was actually somewhat carried over from Nights into Dreams, is the ranking system. At the end of a level, you'll be given 1 of 5 ranks, with E being the lowest and A being the best, with what rank you get determined by the total amount of points you earned at the end of a level. There are several things you gotta do in order to earn that coveted A rank, such as collect as many rings as possible, destroy every enemy in the stage, especially those golden beetle robots, do everything else the individual level asks of you to do, and do all of that as fast as possible without dying or getting hit once. Do all of that, and you will earn that A rank maybe. With Sonic and Shadow, I actually find it pretty easy to earn A rank, since as long as you know what to do and what shortcuts to take, you're guaranteed an A. For Tails and Eggman, you have to chain those lock-ons, as the more enemy chains you get, the larger point values you'll be awarded. As Rouge and Knuckles, it's just a matter of finding the emerald shards as fast as possible, which depending on the level, is easier said than done. The way you get from level to level has been changed as well. The hub worlds of Sonic Adventure 1 are no more. Instead, when completing a level, you just move right on to the next one, and if you want to replay a level, then you gotta go through the stage selection map. You also go through the level select in order to do the other missions for each level. Mission 1 will always be done by just playing through the story. Mission 2 requires you to collect 100 rings. Mission 3 has you find this lost Chao in the level, which often requires the Mystic Melody upgrade for the characters. Mission 4 requires you to beat the level under a time limit. And finally, Mission 5 is the hard mode variant of the stage, which ironically, for the treasure hunter characters is actually easier as the shards will always be in the same 3 locations. There is 2 levels where this mission structure actually deviates, that being the driving levels. At some point in both stories, you'll have to drive on this highway to catch up with either the President in Tails' level, or Tails himself in Rouge's level. These aren't necessarily fun to control. Driving normally feels very stiff, and drifting in these is a pain to control and often leaves you slip and sliding all over the place, where you'll most likely crash into every wall and car conceivable. You can get a boost by collecting enough rings, which is nice. Now, the missions for these are a fucking nightmare, especially missions 3 and 4, which require you to not hit any cars or collide with any wall, respectively. Trying to do that while also going for the A rank is awful. Oddly, the hard mode variants of these 2 levels are actually kind of just eh. They just put more cars on the road, which don't really do much to impede you. After clearing those levels for the first time, you unlock kart racing as a separate game mode to play, and I don't care for it. The best way I can explain why is by pointing out how the other racers move. That's not even mentioning that it's just racing, so no items to fuck with your opponents or anything. This does have multiplayer, but if I want to do kart racing multiplayer, I'm gonna play fucking Mario Kart. Upgrades returned from the first game, but they're now found inside levels since hub worlds aren't a thing anymore. A lot of them returned from SA1, but there are some new ones to boot like the Flame Ring or the Bounce Bracelet for Sonic, which acts like the Bubble Shield from Sonic 3. Rouge and Knuckles both get upgrades that allow them to see invisible objects, which can be required for hard mode missions, but you do have to cycle through the actions in order to activate them because again, every action is for some reason mapped to the B button. Tails and Eggman do get upgrades as well, but it's simply for their mech's arsenal, save for the jet engine / booster, which allows them to hover down from a jump. Of course, there are various boss fights in the game, which, just like SA1, can be divided into 2 camps, actual boss fights and character battles. Now, a lot of the boss fights are actually really fun, sometimes. King Boom Boom can take a while to deal with, and the Bile Lizard fight towards the end has a few attacks that just suck ass to deal with, mainly his orbs in the zero gravity section because they can home in on you. Then there are the actual character fights, which, just like Sonic Adventure 1, are pathetic with a capital P. It's just a matter of who can kill who first, with it a lot of the time being you, save for that final fight between Eggman and Tails, which can go south really fast because of that fucking laser they fire. But other than that, these are bad, plain and simple. You unlock a boss rush mode after completing each story, which allows you to tackle the bosses in order. Once for the hero bosses, again for the dark bosses, and one final time with all of them together. And doing this is required for completion as they award emblems. These also return from SA1, and they're of a similar importance here. They're for the most part just for 100% completion, which actually has a pretty cool reward for doing, that being a 3D recreation of Green Hill Zone from Sonic 1. You can earn these by clearing stages and various missions, with others being awarded for getting all A ranks, clearing those boss rushes, doing the kart races, not to mention the Chao Garden, which also returns and is better than ever. The Chao systems now have a lot more complexity to them, as Chao now have hero and dark variants. You can still give Chao animals to increase their stats, but now you can give them chaos drives from gun robots to also increase their stats. Chaos drives aren't as potent as animals, but they don't give them disgusting deformities, so whichever one you decide to go with is ultimately up to you. Chao races also return and are required for emblems on top of offering your Chao a toy to play with when completed. There's also the Chao Kindergarten, which offers various services such as the classroom to teach your Chao activities like drawing or exercise. You can also find the fortune teller to name your Chao, and the black market to buy items from. But that's only in future versions of the game, as back on Dreamcast, the black market was an actual website which is now defunct, and the ability to name your Chao was done through the VMU. There is one more level that I haven't mentioned yet, that being Canon's Core. It's the final level of the game, which is done in the last story segment, which is unlocked after clearing both the hero and dark side stories. It's pretty much a relay level where you have to play it as Dr. Eggman, Tails, Rouge, Knuckles, and Sonic in order to make it to the end, and as a result, this level is very long, especially the Knuckles section, and it's pretty tricky if you don't have the Air Necklace upgrade, which extends your time underwater. But it's a fun stage overall, one final hurrah before the end of the game. Just don't die as Sonic or else you can kiss that A rank goodbye. One last thing I'll mention is the music, because I'm sure I'd get crucified if I didn't. Sonic Adventure 2 has one of the best soundtracks in the whole series. It's not my personal favorite, as it certainly lacks in the amount of variety and styles compared to Sonic Adventure 1, but what's here is fantastic. This game's version of It Doesn't Matter is my favorite version of the song. Eggman's theme is so iconic that it was snuck into the Sonic 3 movie. Pumpkin Hill is Pumpkin Hill. Pretty much any Sonic or Shadow level is great, especially Escape from the City. While I don't prefer this game's version of Supporting Me, as you can barely hear the fucking lyrics, I do love the version from the 3DS port of Sonic Generations, especially the song's chorus. You know, that reminds me of something. I've neglected to mention this game's main theme. Crush 40 returns to do a lot of the music for this game, and the song that was composed to be the main musical piece of the game is so iconic, so legendary, that I would argue it's not just the main theme of Sonic Adventure 2. It is the anthem for the entire Sonic the Hedgehog series. Live and Learn is the best song to ever come from this series. It's so fucking good and so well liked by the entire fandom that just the opening riff alone is enough to get a crowd going. It just adds to the grandiose feeling that this whole game emanates, that everyone was giving it their all to make this one of the best Sonic games ever made. You know, if this were the final Sonic game, it would have been a large bang to go out on. Actually, come to think of it, there's a lot in this game to suggest that it could have been the finale to the series. The more grand story Shadow's death at the end, some of Live and Learn's lyrics, it feels like this could have been the last Sonic game. And that's because it almost was. By 2000, the Dreamcast was dying. Sega had spent years burning consumer trust with the sudden discontinuation of the 32X, the botched US launch of the Sega Saturn, and Bernie Stolar, the head of Sega of America, saying publicly that the Saturn was not their future. The Dreamcast was a fucking fantastic console, but it launched way too early in the console generation, and it unfortunately had to bear the sins of its fathers. Sega also just didn't have much money. They spent a lot making amazing games for the system, but it was money that they didn't have in the first place, so that meant taking out a lot of loans and racking up a bunch of debt that by 2001, Sega wasn't just facing the possibility of total bankruptcy, Sega was facing death. Then a miracle happened. Isawa Okawa, who was a chairman of CSK Holdings and who had a bunch of stock in Sega, loaned them over $40 million to keep Sega afloat and allow them the opportunity to discontinue the Dreamcast on January 31st, 2001 and make the transition from hardware manufacturer to software publisher. Then, only 2 months after the death of the Dreamcast, Okawa himself passed away as well, but not before waiving the debt that Sega owed him and giving back all of the stock he had in the company, which gave Sega the money they needed to live. Sega would then start putting their games on their competitors' platforms. The PlayStation 2 would see titles like Virtua Fighter 4 and NFL 2K2. Microsoft's new console, the Xbox, would get Shenmue 2 exclusively here in the West, Jet Set Radio Future, and Crazy Taxi 3. And as for our Blue Blur, well, he would find his home in the most unlikely of places. Sonic was coming to Nintendo. In late 2001/early 2002, SA2 would be ported to the GameCube as Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. SA2 Battle saw several enhancements and new additions made, the biggest of which was multiplayer. I didn't mention SA2's multiplayer previously because it was meh, but SA2 Battle revamped the hell out of it. Characters that needed to be unlocked in the original game are now just available from the get-go and have unique stats and abilities to boot. More stages were also added to be played on, with a lot of them having unique designs to make them more interesting. Some quality of life improvements were made as well, like the exclamation graphic when a treasure hunter is right next to an emerald shard. The whole game now runs at 60 frames per second, character models were made more high poly and detailed, a new Chow minigame was added, that being Chow Karate, and several camera angles were improved. Not everything was improved, however. The lighting took a hit in some areas, some cutscenes now have glitched graphics, and the audio balancing was fucked, and honestly got even worse somehow when the HD ports came along. But it is a serviceable port regardless. It's not like SA1, which had a pretty terrible port job, in that there are entire mod packs aimed at restoring the original experience, just smaller mods that port over things like the Dreamcast Chow Gardens that have water so high that Tails can actually drown in them. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter how you play Sonic Adventure 2, it's a fantastic game that the series almost went out on and fortunately didn't. It may have been the last Sonic game on a Sega console, marking the end of an era, but it also sparked new beginnings for Sega moving forward. We didn't have to bid farewell to Sonic forever, as this game helped bring in a new crop of fans from Nintendo, such as myself, who would go on to buy and play more Sonic games and even other Sega titles. It could be said that from a certain point of view, this game helped save Sega, and I think that means something special. Sonic Adventure 2 was one of the best 3D Sonic games ever made, and I'm glad that because of this game, I became a Sonic fan, for better or for worse. Well, with Sega consoles now being a thing of the past, Sonic's next game would see a release on the PlayStation 2, Xbox, and GameCube, Sonic's first multi-platform release, Sonic Heroes, which we will take on next time. Subscribe to the channel if that sounds fun to you, and leave a like and a comment should you choose. With all of that said, have a great day or night. Peace.